It was one of the things that I think you and I talked about right before we hit the record button is this day and age, when you're thinking about moving companies or you're interviewing that company as much as they're interviewing you. And I talk to chief technology officers, CROs that say one of the most important criteria, if I'm making a move, is the culture of the business that I'm going to. In fact, I've had those same I had CRO CMO combinations come on the podcast, and they attributed over 50% of the success of the company to their company culture because it attracted the right high performance individuals that contributed to high performance teams. Their engagement turned into phenomenal engagement with the clients and ultimately better client retention, acquisition, and revenue. So it was refreshing to hear people like a chief sales officer, or a chief revenue officer who are under quotas to drive short-term revenue to talk about something like company culture in such a way that it's such an incredible, important part of the revenue generation engine. So I think it has, like you're saying, massive implications for the value engine that we're talking today, because agent turnover has always been one of the biggest issues in the industry. If you can train and retain your good agents, your good people, then everything you've been talking about here gets a little bit easier.
Also, the idea of, and I've had quite a few conversations recently in terms of where capital investments are going, and the idea of stacking enterprise systems, number one. So you have a workflow engine, you have an ERP system, you have an HR system, you have customer relationship management software. All of those have some very big overlapping capabilities, but they also have some niche capabilities. And a lot of corporations are buying pieces of or all of those things and then not implementing them at their full potential. And they're creating annuity streams for the software companies. And they're actually solving for some of the problems, but they're not necessarily getting at what the core is, but they're disinvesting in places like service. They're disinvesting in order to be able to pay for that. Otherwise, what ends up happening is that their gross margins are just going down. And you have to find ways to replace that. And where are you going to replace it when you're creating all these shiny new penny systems? And are those adding value? And are you actually creating systems that are enabling your frontline and enabling your company to be successful? I think there's this view of what is practical and where to put the investments, and to not treat the front lines like there was a buzz phrase. It was mission critical minimum wage. I heard this from somebody and it drove me crazy because there's like this apparent disinvestment in the only people and the only systems that are actually interacting with your customer directly. And I think that when you put it that way, I think people finally come around, but it takes a little bit of thought, and then looking across the entire landscape of the capital structure and of the value structure of a company to be able to figure that out, and then to make some tough choices in order to put more investment in places where you're going to get customer retention, or you're going to get the ability for low cost acquisition. You want to have zero marginal cost revenue opportunities. And this is one of the ways to help get you there.